What's up, everyone? My name is Philip Hensler,
And I'm Adam Richmond.
and we're your co-hosts for today's PATS Technology Committee podcast. We started this podcast to initiate a conversation with the members of the athletic training community in Pennsylvania in the hopes that we can engage and foster relationships in the state, explore emerging settings, and provide a unique perspective into the day in the life of an athletic trainer. Today, I want to thank our guest, Brandon Mazza, for taking time out of his busy schedule to come talk with us. Brandon, so great to have you on the show. Thank you for coming.
Of course. Glad to be here.
So Brandon has been a licensed athletic trainer for over 10 years. He graduated in 2008 from Duquesne University. He is an NASM Performance Enhancement Specialist and is currently working with UPMC at the Taylor Alderdice High School as a site coordinator. And he also has some fun experience with one of the major sports teams in Pittsburgh. I'll let you guys guess what that is. It's very, very hidden in the shot. But I think we'll end up talking a little bit about that a little bit later with current events and the COVID situation. So Brandon, why don't you take over? Tell us a little bit about yourself. How have you gotten to this point in your career?
How have I gotten to this point in my career? Well, it's been an interesting road to get here. So like you said, actually, you were one of my colleagues at Duquesne University. And when I first joined Duquesne University, I knew I wanted to get into medicine somewhat. But I really wasn't sure where my fit was. I was kind of always into, sports. I was a high school athlete at South Fayette High School. I played football there. Really didn't even know what athletic training was at the time until I broke my elbow during one of my senior year football games. Went through the whole rehab protocol, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a physical therapist. Got into Duquesne University and started looking around, and I didn't even know that the sports medicine world really existed where I could specialize and just work with athletes. As I kind of focused in, I realized that this was for me. I did a rotation with the Pittsburgh Steelers when I was in college, and I had one of the best experiences ever, time of my life. The following week after we lost that last playoff game, I was in a rehab clinic, twiddling my thumbs, working on geriatric patients, and I was bored out of my mind, So, I really kind of fell into it. I went in thinking I wanted to do something like physical therapy. And then, by the end I came out, realized I kind of just want to work with athletes. From there, I got on a job at UPMC Sports Medicine. I became an athletic trainer one. I was on board with Pittsburgh Public Schools, from the get-go. At the time, we had 9 Pittsburgh Public Schools, but we only had 3 athletic trainers for all 9 schools. So, me learning how to be an athletic trainer and learning how to, manage 30 teams per season. It was pretty interesting, from the get-go there. So my second year at UPMC, a contract was drafted up between the Pittsburgh Penguins and UPMC Sports Medicine, and they needed help. They weren't really sure how much or how little at the time. They just said we needed help. My manager, who knew I was real big into hands-on manual therapy and knew that I was very big into hockey, me being a young athletic trainer full of energy, ready to, work these hard, long shifts. She thought it'd be a good fit, and I did that first year, and I really think the rest was history. Year by year, I kind of carved out my notch. I am one of their concussion spotters over the years that was mandated by the different agreements and things like that. So, it was an interesting way I got to this point, but fun nonetheless.
Yeah, Brandon, that sounds awesome. Can you dig in a little bit deeper about what your current role looks like and what a typical day looks like for you, depending if you're more in that site coordinator role or if you're more in the Penguins?
Okay. I will say my day is very atypical no matter what day it is. So a lot of my responsibilities, start with the high school and training camp. So during, coming up like this fall here, we have training camps coming up where I'm, the morning I'm there at 7 a.m. I don't leave sometime till 7 at night, and I'm doing, paperwork after that. I'm at the practices, I'm going to the games for the high school athletes. I'm, doing all the rehab. I'm doing the concussion testing, the day-to-day sports medicine things that you'd expect with traditional roles in athletic training. Now, once Penguins start kicking up, I'm there for their training camp in the mornings. Okay. So the kids, conveniently go back to school where my schedule would only start at 2:00. Well, guess what? Training camp for the Pens start now. So Come that, I'm working training camps, and from training camp, I'm leaving. I'm going to the high school and working the fall sports. There. Once we start playing games with the Penguins, it kind of gets a little bit trickier depending. UPMC is very helpful in that essence. So if I have a football game and I have a hockey game the same night, they will send some help my way for the football game, and I would go cover the hockey game. But I don't have practice that night. There's a hockey game. Okay, guys, have a good night. And then I go work the hockey game. Yep. So it's really depends on what day, what time of the year it is. Whenever the teams are traveling, I'm like the athletic trainer that is kind of responsible for the at-home base. Sometimes they go on road trips for 2 weeks per se, and they have an athlete that doesn't go on the road trip with the Penguins. So I would be the athletic trainer that shows up there every morning, and I do their their rehab. I'm there for their on ice training and things along that nature. So it's it really depends the time of the year, how many injuries we have, what's going on with the sports, and a lot of gears there.
Do you think you could maybe explain the professional role there and what the hierarchy looks like at the Penguins? Like, do you have a head athletic trainer? Like, do they, who does the initial evaluation, and then how does it, when do they get to you? And I know you talked about manual therapy and that being a passion for you. How does that all look, and how does that trickle down?
Yep. So the Penguins have their own sports medicine team to start with. Okay. They have a head athletic trainer. They have 2 assistant athletic trainers. I'm kind of more of like an adjunct contract from UPMC, like I mentioned previously.
Yeah.
And I'm just there to kind of do the meat and potatoes of my job, which kind of is the best part of my job, if you ask me. Chris Stewart, the head there, does a great job with the major duties that comes with being a head athletic trainer, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have to do all the paperwork and all the behind scenes things. I get to show up and do like the best part of my job. I get to help people. I get to put my hands on them. I get to do what I do best. When I do go to the high schools, though, I do got to do that paperwork. So, sometimes I go to the Penguins, it's like it's extra relief. I just get to do my job. I don't have to call a parent later at night because, Johnny got his ankle rolled during practice. Like I can go to the hockey and I can just do what I do best.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then how big is Taylor Alderdice?
Taylor Alderdice is, so we're in our own district, but if you're considered like the rest of the Whitfield, we're a 6A school. We have roughly between 350 to 400 kids per grade level. So
not a small school at all.
No.
I mean, you're working a full competition, a full sport load with a lot of athletes.
Exactly. So a normal season, we probably have between 200 and 250 athletes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah. But
now, Adam, do you have another any add-on for that?
No.
So I was so one of the cool things, I think, you're working in the professional setting. You're working with professional athletes, and you're also at the larger high school. What do you see that overlaps in those two arenas? Because they're pretty extreme difference. But I mean, we're all athletic trainers. We're all, like you said, you get to take care of your athletes. What do you see that's similar and different? How does one interact with the other?
I think the similarities, you being an athletic trainer, in my opinion, an athlete is an athlete is an athlete. I get people ask me all the time, what are the Penguins like? I'm like, well, have you ever met, a high school hockey player? They're like, oh, yeah, I know what a high school hockey player is like. Well, yeah, it's the same thing. They're just a little bit older and have a little bit more cash in their pockets. I mean, I think
a few less teeth and a little bit more facial hair.
Yeah, I mean, they still, worry if they have an injury. They still get stressed out if, things at home aren't going right. So a lot of the human aspects of just the athlete, I mean, you see that crossover pretty easily. Obviously, there's some major differences and, treatment approaches and availability of facilities. I might see an athlete and say, hey, I think this needs to be looked at by a physician. I call mom, they can be in 3 days later, and that doctor, I think we need to get an MRI. You get an MRI a week later. So now we're like a week and a half out before it's really gets some imaging. Whereas this athlete came up to me during practice and said, my back's a little sore. I said, hey, doc, can you take a look at this? Yeah, we're getting an MRI in 10 minutes. So just the availability of different assets. I mean, that's probably the major differences I see.
Yeah. So you're not waiting around for diagnostics. You know exactly what you're dealing with. Same day.
We're standing there watching the MRI happen. It's as quick as you can get it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's cool. So Penguins are restarting. I heard that on the news.
They are.
how much or what can you talk about what you guys are doing for the restart and a little bit of how that's involved with the high school? I know you're doing a little bit with UPMC on that as well.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about how we're handling things here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we're actually handling things pretty well in Pittsburgh. We definitely have the facility to do it up there at Lemieux Sports Complex. It's been a phased return to play protocol. Currently, we are now in the third phase, I believe, where we're actually in training camp and we're allowed to have, full guys on the ice and, being able to have actual practices. Previous to this, we were in a phase where we're only allowing a limited amount of guys on the ice per session. Okay. These sessions would have, a specific equipment guy, an athletic trainer, and some sort of strength coach. Once those guys had their session, they had their skate, all of us, staff included, had to leave before the next group could get in there. During that process, there would be sanitation between groups. And I guess I should have mentioned there's a pretty good screening process that we go through, just to allow people into the building. We use an online application that the athlete actually takes their temperature at home, logs into the system. They, do all their symptoms. They get to the arena. Once they get to the arena, myself, I screen my guys specifically, their temperature, and then we allow them to the building from there. I think that, for what we have at Lemieux, because we have 2 sheets of ice, it makes it very easy to have what we were doing happen. We had to have 6 groups of guys because we're only allowing limited amounts on a time. If we only had 1 sheet of ice to work on, I think that would be near impossible. So, with that, we had to have the NHL come in and kind of give it a once over, approve our program, our protocol. And they actually comment that we were one of the better facilities, I would say, around the area.
So it sounds like they're shutting down the Lemieux Sports Complex for practices now. You guys using both sheets of ice?
Correct.
So no public viewing.
No,
you won't have other teams on the other ice or anything like that.
No spectators. Okay. Yeah. It's very limited on the amount of people actually allowed in the facility.
Okay.
And your bubble, so you're saying like you have an AT and a strength coach that's in your bubble, and then they're not in any other bubble.
Correct. The athletes that were in my group were in my group, and they didn't, merge until actually this latest phase. They were allowed to merge into bigger groups, but
earlier on, yeah.
Exactly. Those were my guys. They weren't allowed to cross a specific line in the building because that was considered, not part of the protocol, so right. Yeah, we kept it pretty tight, and I think we did pretty good. We didn't spread anything, thus far.
And so what if an athlete, he's doing a screening in the morning and he says, I have a headache or I have a sore throat today. What does that look like?
Firstly, if they do document that into the system, we get all red flagged as athletic trainers because we are part of the system. Yep. Obviously, that's a call to the head athletic trainer, which would go straight to the head team doctor. And then I think they'd probably evaluate the situation from there. I think with the latest outbreaks and things, they probably wouldn't even recommend them coming to the facility that day, and they'd probably take care of it on an individual basis there.
Yeah. And they'd be able to get testing and pretty quickly then, and be able to rule in or rule out if it was actually a case or not.
For sure. Yeah. So for the phase we were speaking to when we had these limited groups of guys in bubbles, we were going through testing on a weekly basis to make sure, none of us had that. Now that we're all in a little bit of a closer proximity, we have decided to switch to every other day testing, just to be a little bit more safe for us and the athletes.
Yeah. And do you mind, we talked a little bit off air, but do you mind like kind of going over the different types of testing and how long it's been taking for you to get results back?
Yep. So the initial testing we're using with the nasopharyngeal. I'm not sure if you guys have any pleasure of having that done, but it's a nice long Q-tip, I feel like it touches your brain sometimes. But that's what we were using. We were getting results back fairly quickly in the beginning, at least in a lot of week time that we were doing the testing. I believe there was definitely some spikes in Allegheny County and around the area, and we were definitely not getting test back results as quick as we were looking for. So we decided to switch to saliva testing. And the saliva testing, we had the ability to work with the lab and get these test back results much quicker.
Nice. And then do you want to talk about as you're into these later phases, what do you look like now?
We're coming along. We have another week of training camp coming up here shortly, and then 26th, we're leaving to Toronto. Yeah, for our final bubble.
And again, now you're testing every day or every other day, you said?
Every other day for the Alive.
Every other day. Anything as you you're leaving your bubble, Pittsburgh, and you're going to another state, playing another opponent. Does that change any of the testing or any of the protocols?
I think we're not really going to any other states. We're going straight to Toronto from here. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We're leaving Pittsburgh. We're going to Toronto. Once we're there, we're there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So they're doing the whole season. Toronto was the pick city.
Well,
Okay.
the East is in Toronto. The West is in Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know those.
So now
that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense.
If you're allowed to say, how does that affect you? Now, will you be staying here in Pittsburgh, going back and forth, or
Brandon did not make that cut on that one. So they limit the guys that are actually allowed into the bubble, rightfully so. And
right.
so as soon as the training camp's over, I'll wait for the boys to bring a cup home.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's how they're limiting it. Once they get up there, they still have that bubble. Yeah. I'm not up on my current events right now in sports world. So
gotcha.
That makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to then talk about the high school? You said you're pretty involved in writing some protocols and obviously with the high school sports trying to ramp back up. What does that look like in Pittsburgh for high schools?
Yeah. It's that's been a process as well. I'm working with my athletic director. I'm working with, the Pittsburgh board to try to figure out what's going to be the safest way to get these athletes back. I think a big concern was not having this conditioning time that a lot of the athletes are kind of looking for during the summertime. How do we get these athletes working out in a safe environment? Without getting into too many details with the individual school screening process, but I think similar to the professional enter the facility, we're going to have some sort of screening protocol where the athletes have to go through some sort of questionnaire, temperature screening. We're obviously maintaining social distances on the sidelines. Problem is, I think we're kind of in a holding pattern with different recommendations from the state right now. So, what is the right answer today might not be the right answer next week.
Never is
so,
right now.
Yeah. So right now, we're limiting to groups of like 25 on the field, in the high school setting. That's just for right now. It's just for the off-season training. We're encouraging athletes to wear masks whenever they're not working out. All staff members are wearing masks and gloves when they're coaching. One of our big things that we were concerned about was communal water. So we've
that's been the staple of athletic training, right? Like we all have a water bottle or a hose. Like what are we gonna do?
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to nail down right now. How are we gonna have individual water for each of our athletes? I know I'm not sure how much you're familiar with Taylor Alderdice. My situation, my kids probably could get a water bottle for themselves, but other schools with a little bit lesser income, they might not be able to go out and buy a water bottle for themselves. So we're trying to figure out some solutions right now to allow the kids to be able to come participate at their full potential in a safe manner.
Yeah. And at this point, there's no contact. Are you trying to keep the drill social distance still, or is there some more scrimmaging type activities?
Right now, okay, so our protocol, we're not allowing contact. I'm not sure what all schools are. I don't think there is a direct recommendation given out to all the schools yet. I really can't speak for everybody, but we're doing our best to keep our social distancing. There's no contact. It's more of a conditioning type situation.
Gotcha. Nice.
Cool.
All right. So Brandon, as you're working through this, COVID situation, what do you guys have a plan of attack? Like what if somebody does test positive that was in, some of these conditioning or, how do you go about, do you have a contact tracing protocol set up? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I think, firstly, every case, depending on the sport, it's going to be very individualized to the situation. We do have a plan in place for what is going to happen if a athlete does come in contact or God forbid does come down with COVID. I think it's going to be very specific to the sport, and the when, where the event happened. The Allegheny County Board of Health is going to do all of our contract tracing, for all this, so Perfect. It's going to be reported up the food chain, through, our athletic director or our, healthcare administrators. They forward that all the way to the Allegheny County Board, so they'll kind of take care of contacting and making sure all the people that would be possibly involved would be at least aware of the situation and what degree of separation they would be in the case. At our level, I really think we're shutting down anyone even near it. If you came to practice and Sally had a fever, I mean, we might say, listen, everyone in that group yesterday, you need to stay home for a few days just to make sure. Yep. I think it's, like I said, very individualized, depending on the sport, depending on the case, when it happened, where it happened. But we do have some plans set in place to, shut down a small segment of the team. And that's, I think, a big thing that we were worried about with high school sports, so we're grouping off into various, groups. And, I'm talking to the coaches about, who, what, why, where we're going to put in each single group. And one coach is like, well, I want all my linemen in this group. Well, I said, well, coach, if you put all your linemen in this group and then that whole group has to self-quarantine, okay, what's going to happen to that game? You're not going to have any linemen at all, so you're going to have to forfeit that whole game, So I think that's been a process, and the coaches are kind of more understanding of the big picture now. If we do have to shut a small set of kids down, they want to have these massive groups. I know some of them scoff at 25. I'm like, well, listen, it's if have these 30, 40, 50 group kids all just running around, you have to shut everyone down. God forbid someone does come in contact. So I'm actually more of an advocate of smaller groups. So if something does happen along these nature, we're not shutting down a whole team. We're not losing a whole game, because we have to forfeit because we don't have enough athletes,
Yeah. And so you're saying like small groups for practice and stuff, but then like, what if it's a game? Like, how are you gonna, keeping, those are all the questions that are running through my head, right? Like, what are we going to consider? Yeah. Like, what are we going to consider a close contact that you do have to, like, we define it as, being within that 15 or, being within that 6 feet for 15 minutes, but, like, is that 15 minutes consecutive? Like, is that, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many questions and it's so hard to work through. So it's good to hear that you guys have a plan. But it's still, I don't think, like you said earlier, it's so fluid, and what your plan is today is probably not going to be what it is tomorrow. But thanks for sharing that.
Exactly.
It's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brandon, let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned manual therapy a whole bunch. This is something that I do a lot in my practice. I'd love to hear what techniques you're using, how you're implementing them, and what you feel the results are, and ultimately, like, how you feel that benefits your athletes.
Yeah. So I think we kind of chat about this off air a little bit. I was formally trained in active release therapy, your ART. I've known some clinicians to teach me some Graston over the years that I'm very comfortable with. I am a Eldoa instructor. I'm not sure if you ever familiar with that. Eldoa it's kind of a program set up to cause traction in the spine, similar to yoga movements. Real big in hockey, real big in Europe. Okay. Cool. So I've been formally trained in all these, but I think me becoming a clinician, a successful clinician over the years, is not to pigeonhole myself to one system. I've really taken to different tools and different bits out of each system to kind of make what I think works best for me. I think having the ability to have so many athletes, especially in high school, if I want to try something new out, are they going to know if that's not exactly what was in the plans? But hey, it worked out, so guess what? I can take that to my hockey athletes now. I know that's a technique that I've seen a lot of good results with. I know in the first couple of years I'm becoming a clinician, I threw as many, bodies on the table as I could. I was trying to, touch as many people, feel as many bodies, fix as many bodies as I could, just become a better clinician with the tools that I've learned.
Oh, that's great.
Cool.
Kind of going off of that, it sounds like you've had some good experiences. It sounds like you've had, you've put your hours in. You're probably hit that 10,000 hours. But out of those 10,000 hours, what was the coolest experience you've had so far?
I mean, I'd be hard pressed to say it was anything but winning the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Twice.
Twice.
Kind of cool.
Not once.
Cool.
Twice.
Yeah. I mean, from that year where we didn't even think we were going to make it to the playoffs, all the way for the next year, all the way through, it was just a special experience. Going through the playoffs, being a part of the team when everyone's, trying the hardest in the heat of the playoffs to stay healthy and do the best they can to everyone was trying so hard to win. It was such a cool environment because that was the first time I was around that. Everyone just, you could see from the, from Sid all the way down to the last equipment manager, everybody wanted to win that, and it was just an exciting process. And then you win the cup, and then you come home and everybody is excited and the whole city wants to party and everyone, so, I got to be in the parades and, just all the things people I've got to meet and things I got to do as a result of this, winning the Stanley Cup and being part of the Penguins is probably definitely one of the memorable aspects of my career.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I do think,
and I have a little memorabilia for you. That is Mazza's ring right there. I had the incredible honor of seeing it once, and I got to hold it, and that was the result of the that 10 minutes that I got to see it.
Well, it looks good on there.
I liked what you said about like the environment of the playoffs and how it's different. And I hear some people say that, how you treat an athlete in season or out of season or in the playoffs is, shouldn't matter what time of the year it is, but it definitely does, right? Like you're grinding through some pain that you might not have normally, but it's playoff time. So you're putting, you're probably putting a ton of manual therapy into those guys that, is manual therapy maybe the number one thing that's going to fix a biomechanical pattern or something? Maybe not, but it's going to make them feel good and it's going to get them back on the ice. And that's what they need to do during the playoffs, right? You just need to get them back on the ice. So
exactly.
That's a cool experience for sure. I'm
For
very
sure.
jealous. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think you really hit the head in the nail with that. I mean, you really, it was grinding. It was, it was, like I said, nothing I've ever experienced before. It was a lot of late nights, rubbing butts till, midnight after games and stuff like that. But, we did the best we can.
Icy hot, K-tape, all the stuff that people are like boo-hoo that, it makes them feel better. Like you got to do what you got to do to get them
whatever
on the
it
ice,
took,
man, especially in the playoffs.
For sure.
If it's a 1% advantage and it's, even if it's 1% up here, it gets them back.
Yep.
It gets them that little bit of edge for the next playoff game. Yeah.
No, I think that was a great point. All right. Well,
all right. Let's lightning round. What do you guys think?
You want to do it? Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
You ready, Adam? Or you ready, Adam? You ready, Brandon?
I hope so.
All right. So lightning round. You can go as detailed or as quick as you want. These are some fun questions that we've gotten some really, really cool answers from. So the first one I'll take. Brandon, what is your dream job?
Dream job. I'm almost there. I would like to be more of a full-time role with the Penguins. I know I want to work in pro hockey full-time. Right now, I love my position, being able to do the manual therapy and still work in high schools, but ultimately I'd like to be full-time with the Penguins.
Nice.
I don't know who wouldn't want to be.
Yeah. All right. So we talked all about athletic training and COVID
Mm-hmm.
and all kinds of other stuff, but what do you do for fun?
Do for fun. I love to travel. I'm a rock climber myself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's a new one. We haven't got that yet. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a newer endeavor, but I appreciate being able to train hard all winter in the gym, and then you go outside and you get to be around nature and you get to experience things other people haven't because they haven't put the work in to be able to get to that part of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's probably a bucket list for me, is to try to touch as many places that very few people have ever touched.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of those sports where you don't train to get better. You train to have more fun. And
Exactly.
it's just that driving, just a couple more hours in the gym and I'd be able to make that one move.
Exactly. Yeah. I've seen some of your photography, Phil. You've been some pretty cool places, buddy.
Every once in a while I get something fun.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if that continues. What happens with that? But so on the lines of photography, I mean, that's one of the things that inspires me is just that magical sight you see after you click the shutter. You obviously have a lot of passion, manual therapy, definitely working with hockey and your athletes. You see a lot of passion there. Where do you draw your inspiration from? What inspires you?
It really inspires me to see someone come to me. I guess it kind of leads into what I really like about my job, is that I want to help people. It's kind of funny, a little anecdote. My mother took me when I was a baby, took me to a fortune teller, and she read my palm and she said, "This child is going to be a healer." And she could have been more spot on with that. Like I really do enjoy the aspect of someone coming to me, "Brandon, I'm in pain. What can you do to help me?" And then I actually do help them, and I actually see the relief, and not only the physical relief, but the mental relief that does come with injury. Being able to help people, that's it. I mean, I think that's what I was put on earth to do. I think that fortune teller was right.
That's so cool. That's awesome. So kind of, on the same lines, but maybe even a little bit deeper, but just curious, what does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
Being an athletic trainer, you're basically any and everything an athlete may need sports medicine wise, and I've really learned that over the years. You learn all the things in the books, but you don't learn that your athlete's going to come to you and say, hey, my boyfriend just broke up with me. I'm a crying mess right now. Or, you don't hear, things about, oh, my relative just got this job promotion. I'm so happy. And Brandon, I just want to share this with you just because I want to share it with somebody,
Yep.
It's I kind of wasn't really expecting all that, but it's definitely a cool aspect of athletic training, so
it's a unique healthcare.
Yeah. So you really take care of the whole person that is the athlete, not just their orthopedic type stuff. You take care of anything that athlete really needs to a certain degree, but
Yeah.
you're there. You're their sometimes they're psychiatrists, sometimes you're just your sounding board. You're their clinician. You're just someone. Sometimes you just got to be that person to talk to lend a ear on. So
yeah, especially when I think we're unique when we see them every day. Not many healthcare providers get to see their patients every single day.
Exactly.
And yeah, you're there for the ups, the downs, and everything in between. And you might not be the actual person that they need to talk to, but you're still their first person they are going to talk to, and at least you can point them in the right direction.
Find
right?
them, find them the right person to go to.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Well, Brandon, you've been awesome to chat with today. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to share all your stories with us and all your experiences. It's been absolutely amazing. If listeners have any questions to talk to you a little bit more about, is there any ways that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, we could probably give you my email address. Maybe we could forward out to maybe a certain blog or something like that. We can talk.
Cool. Are you on social media at all? Anything like that?
I'm not. I try to stay away from there. Being in the public eye with a lot of our profession, I try to stay out of there.
No, that's probably better.
Yeah.
I literally just saw my phone. I spent like 4 hours a day on my phone. I was like, what am I doing with my life? I need to stop that. So that's probably better. But again, I just want to say thank you, Brandon, for joining us. It was a great episode. And I just want to say thank you to our viewers. Thanks for listening. And if you guys have any topics or guests that you would like to see on the show, please reach out to us. Let us know. Comment below. Like and share this episode. Otherwise, it's been great. Until next time, I'm Adam Richmond.
And I'm Philip Hensler.
And this was the Pats Podcast.